Let's look at the Magento 2 file system. This module will discuss the file system structure within Magento 2 and where critical files are located.
Here are Magento 2's 8 root folders. App includes core code, custom modules, themes, and global configuration. Bin has the Magento script, which is the Magento 2 command line tool described earlier. Dev includes different scripts and tools useful for developers. Lib includes external libraries not installed through the composer. For the repo cloning installation, it includes the Magento framework, lib internal Magento framework. Vendor, the composer folder which contains all the dependencies. It may also include Magento framework and core modules for composer-based installation. Pub, folder that should be public on the host. This folder has a static subfolder where all static files need to be placed in production. Static files can be located in themes and modules, so moving them all to pub static is not a trivial task. There is a special command available within the command line tool which allows for that. However, as it takes a while to accomplish this and is not convenient for development, there is also a static PHP file that locates and returns static files from the modules and themes. Setup, folder that contains installation-specific files. Var, an important folder where cache, logs, and other files, like uploaded CSV files, are stored.
Depicted here are the contents of an app folder. App etc includes global configuration, app code, custom modules, and in the case of cloning repo installation, core modules, app design, themes, app i18n, specific translation files, app bootstrap.php, app autoload.php, and app functions.php are 3 special PHP files that must be included at the very beginning of execution process. The slide describes where Magento 2 code is located. It can be separated to application code, main code, and framework code. Main code includes Magento 2 application logic, while framework contains general code not related to any specific feature. Magento code is mainly organized as modules. A module is a folder with a specific structure that contains code, a structural unit of code. You can perform an operation with a module, update, disable, and so on. Framework is also structured as a set of folders with code, like core, but they are just folders, not a module. This is an important point. Although framework and the main core code at first glance look similar, both a set of folders with code, they are not. Framework's folders are just folders, while main code folders are modules. Magento code is organized in the following way. There is a folder, app code, which is where most of the PHP code is located. The code is packaged inside modules. Each module belongs to a vendor. In the native Magento installation, there is only one vendor, Magento. When you create custom code, you can create additional vendors. So, for code under app code, the folder structure is app code vendor, and inside this folder is the list of modules. PHP code installed under the vendor directory is located using the Composer autoloader, so the vendor namespace and module name folders follow the Composer convention of using all lowercase. The module then adds itself to the Composer autoloader list with its uppercase vendor and module name. For an example, please consult your participant guide.
On the slide, you can see some components of the Magento framework. Please note, framework component is technically not a module in the sense discussed above. The diagram shows possible subfolders of a module folder. Note that the only required folder is etc. The structure is not as strict as in Magento 1, so a module might have any subfolder. Also, a developer can place a file in any subfolder. However, the listed folders correspond to different list types, so this structure is historical and should be retained. The most popular are blocks for blocks, controller for controller actions, helper for helpers, model where models and resource models are located, setup for schema and data patches, view for layout XML files, templates, and static view files. Note that the file name must repeat the folder structure, starting from vendor module name. For example, the class of the file vendor Magento module-catalog model product.php. The capital letter folders usually have special meaning. They will be covered in more depth in the next unit, Unit 2. The View folder is distinct and will be covered extensively in Unit 3. However, we'll take a quick look at it now. To see a typical module file structure, visit the link on your screen.
This slide shows the different subfolders within the View folder for a module. Their names are self-explanatory, and we will discuss them in more detail in Unit 3. As we mentioned, modules are located in the app code or vendor folder. All the native modules are located in the app code Magento folder. In Magento 1, templates were separated from the PHP code, making modules difficult to package. Now, in Magento 2, it is much easier. In Magento 1, all templates were located in the app design folder and grouped by themes and packages. In Magento 2, all templates and layout XML files are located in the View folder. This makes modules more granular as all associated files are packaged within one folder. Within the View folder are directories corresponding to design areas, namely Front-End, Admin HTML, and Base. They contain folders such as Templates, Layout, and Web. The template folders contain the .phtml files, layout folders contain layout files, and the web folders contain files that are requested by the browser directly, like CSS and JavaScript. From one point of view, this is a good thing because everything is within the module directory and can be easily packaged for distribution. On the other hand, there is no longer direct access for browsers to the module web page resource files, which makes things more complicated. Magento provides a special mechanism for accessing them in developer mode, and a command line tool to copy static files into the pub folder for production mode.
Magento 2 houses all the custom design elements in one folder located in the folder App Design. Native out-of-the-box themes could be found in the Vendor Magento folder. In the subfolders Theme-Frontend-Luma, Theme-Frontend-Blank, Theme-Admin-HTML-Backend. Magento 2 introduces a new concept for the platform, themes, which contain static web assets, templates, and layout files.
In this video, we will speak about static assets. So let us take a look what happens when we load any page in Magento. You see, it loads a lot of different static resources, especially CSS files, JS files. Those are most interesting for us. So two special CSS files, styles M and styles S, styles L and styles M CSS, which are very important, and many JS files. So let's take a look at some of those files and see where do they come from. We have a lot of JS files. So for example, authentication pop-up file. So we can see its path. Let's open it in a separate tab, in a new tab. Oh, yes, we open it, but it's HTML. So we have to see it in the source. So here we can see its source. It's HTML file that we downloaded. But let's now take a look and this file. So you can see that it's located in the static, some version, frontend, Magento, Luma, NUS, Magento customer template, authentication pop-up HTML. So this file, the static file, HTML file, belongs to Magento customer module. But you see this strange path. So let's locate this file. This file is located in the pub folder, in the pub static. There is no version, so a version is added automatically. And then it's in the front end, in Magento, Luma, and NUS. And then it's Magento customer module. And in Magento customer module, we would have this authentication pop-up. Let's open also it in the terminal. Pub, static, frontend, Magento, Luma, NUS, Magento customer, templates, and here we go. We see this authentication pop-up being a symlink to a physical file, which is located in our document root. So this is how Magento operates with static assets in developer mode. So we can remove it, authentication pop-up, and let's try to hit it again. And we can hit it again, and we got it again. Now, if you take a look here, we will see this file generated again. So how does it work? Let's remove it once again. The tricky thing is that Magento will redirect every static content that comes from pub static folder, it will generate it on fly. So every request will, if the resource does not exist, every request would be redirected to static.php file. Let's test it. Let's say exit, hi there, just to check. Now we go to our resource and let's refresh our file. So hi there. If this HTML file does not exist, this request would be redirected to static.php, and static.php will locate the requested file in the module folder and generate a symlink. And this mechanism only works for Magento in the developer and default mode. In production mode, Magento will not generate static files, and you have to generate it with a special command and deploy them all into this folder. This will work much faster, but it generates huge inconveniences in development.
When should static files be placed in a theme rather than in a specific module? Select your answer or answers and then click Submit. This module will discuss the important procedures used during the development process in Magento 2, modes, command line tools, and caching.
Magento 2 can run in one of three primary modes: developer, production, and default. One of the biggest differences between the modes is how static view files get served. Static view files are CSS files, JavaScript, and images from modules that have to be processed before they can be delivered to a browser. There is also a maintenance mode, but that operates in a different way, only to prevent access to the system. You should use the developer mode while you are developing customizations or extensions. The main benefit to this mode is that error messages are visible to you. It should not be used in production because of its impact on performance. In developer mode, static view files are generated every time they are requested. They are written to the pub static directory, but this cache is not used. This has a big performance impact, but any changes a developer makes to view files are immediately visible. Uncaught exceptions are displayed in the browser rather than being logged. An exception is thrown whenever an event subscriber cannot be invoked. System logging in var report is highly detailed in this mode. You should run Magento in production mode once it is deployed to a production server. Production mode provides the highest performance in Magento 2. The most important aspect of this mode is that errors are logged to the file system and are never displayed to the user. In this mode, static view files are not created on the fly when they are requested. Instead, they have to be deployed to the pub static directory using the command line tool. The generated pages will contain direct links to the deployed page resources. Any changes to view files require running the deploy tool again. Because the view files are deployed using the command line tool, the web user does not need to have write access. The Magento pub static directory can have read-only permissions, which is a more secure setup on a publicly accessible server. As its name implies, default mode is how the Magento software operates if no other mode is specified. In this mode, errors are logged to files in var reports and are never shown to a user. Static view files are materialized on the fly and then cached. In contrast to developer mode, view file changes are not visible until the generated static view files are cleared. Default mode is not optimized for a production environment, primarily because of the adverse performance impact of static files being materialized on the fly, rather than generating and deploying them beforehand. In other words, creating static files on the fly and caching them has a greater performance impact than generating them using the static file creation command line tool. Here is a summary of the key features that distinguish each mode. Maintenance mode is used when you want to make the site unavailable to the public during updates or other changes. Maintenance mode works differently from other modes. You don't use the mage mode variable. Instead, you use the file var.maintenance.flag with the mode set to default. The method bootstrap assert maintenance controls this mode. When maintenance mode is enabled, the screen will show the error message 503 internal server error. You can specify a group of people to have access to the site while this mode is employed by placing the associated IPs as a comma-separated list without whitespace in the file var.maintenance.ip.
Using environment variables allows you to set the mode for your Linux, Windows, Apple, or any other system. However, this approach has disadvantages. The process to set an environment variable differs depending on the web stack being used. The other approach to setting mode is to set environment variables in the web server. The most popular web server setup is probably Apache with mod.php. Environment variables can be set in the main Apache configuration or in htaccess and pub.htaccess files. If you're running this type of stack, the easiest way to set a desired run mode is using the setenv configuration option as shown on the slide.
For instructions on specifying the mode using the PHP FPM system environment, please consult your operating system documentation. On Unix systems, the environment variable can also be set by exporting it into a shell before restarting the service. Export space mage_mode equals developer.
In this video, we will speak about Magento modes. When we install Magento, we are in the default mode. There are three modes in Magento: default mode, developer mode, and production mode. When we do our development, we always use developer mode. The mode that Magento is in defines multiple things. It will affect performance, it will affect the way how Magento generates static content, It will also affect error reporting. In the production mode, we will not be able to see errors. In the default mode, we would see errors right on the screen. So let's see how we can set a mode. Basically, mode could be set in multiple ways. It could be done through the environmental variable, for example, in the htaccess file. You see that set env mode developer. If you uncomment this line, this will set your mode to developer if you use Apache. You have to do it in two places, in the htaccess and also in the pub htaccess. So in those two htaccess files. We are not using Apache here, we're using Nginx. So we can set an environmental variable in the Nginx config, which is not very convenient. Fortunately, there are two console commands in Magento that we can use in order to see what is the current mode and in order to set the mode. Those commands are php bin Magento. Let's take a look into them. List. So there are two commands, deploy mode set and deploy mode show. So let's say php bin Magento deploy mode set show. We are in the default mode. We can also see and modify the mode in a special file in the app etc env.php file. Env.php file has a general configuration of our system, and so it has configuration of the mode. You can see we have mage mode default. We can change this file and change this to production or developer. But usually what we do is that we set mode using command. So we do that php bin Magento deploy mode set developer mode. Okay, so php bin Magento deploy mode show. Wait a little bit, and we are in the developer mode. In developer mode, static files would be symlinked, and it will be very easy to modify them. In developer mode, we will see all errors, and in developer mode, Magento will not cache classes definitions, which allows us easier develop and debug while we're doing our development. So when we develop, we always use developer mode. Let's also take a look into the env.php, and we see that env.php has changed. So that command would change mage mode from default to developer. So this is how we operate with changing modes in Magento.
See your course exercises guide for instructions on how to complete this exercise and the solution.